Welcome back. It's Sunday, November 16th, and we have the first tropical threat developing for the Australian season. This system carries the potential to develop into a tropical cyclone by as early as late next week, and perhaps even developing into a significant tropical cyclone. In today's forecast, we're going to cover off on everything that you need to know ahead of this developing system. Starting off by taking a look at the current infrared satellite imagery from this morning, we can see here in northwestern WA, or just to the north of the coastline, we have Invest 97S. Now, this is a collection of ongoing thunderstorm and shower activity that has migrated to the east, associated with a Madden-Julian oscillation pulse, which has now developed a collection of ongoing shower and thunderstorm activity that you can see here in the bright colors. We've got a number of ongoing convective thunderstorms blowing up in the last couple of hours, mainly in the black tops, which are the colder cloud top temperatures. This Invest area has actually now been upgraded to a tropical low O2U, given the nature of the ongoing thunderstorm activity that has blown up, particularly over the overnight hours and into early this morning. And it does have a very weak transient circulation associated with it, hence why it has now been upgraded to a tropical low. Now, this tropical low is expected to continue eastward over the next coming days in an environment that is not particularly conducive to tropical cyclone development, at least in the next 1 to 3 day period. However, we do expect this to change, particularly through late next week into early weekend. If we switch to the Bureau of Meteorology's tropical cyclone 7-day forecast outlook, we can see here that they have now outlined the tropical low O2U, which is just located to the north of the WA coastline, a little bit west of the NT border. Now, we can see, obviously outlined here, it is quite a small system, and it was also evidenced by the satellite imagery we just looked at. It was relatively small in nature, just some ongoing thunderstorms at this time. But if we continue to drag this out through the next couple of days, the probability in the next day or so is only around 5% for a tropical cyclone to develop. But as early as Tuesday and Wednesday, we can see this increases to around 15%, which is still a low chance of tropical cyclone development, but it definitely increases throughout the week. And then as we hit Thursday, we can see the colors change here, where they increase to a 25% or moderate chance of a tropical cyclone developing. And at this point in time, the tropical low will be located more to the NT region, or a little bit closer to Darwin, just north of Darwin in the coastal region. And as we continue to drag this out, we can see that the blob area definitely increases in size, which represents the uncertainty of where this tropical low would actually be positioned, as well as the nature of the ongoing thunderstorm activity increasing in size. Now, by Friday, we can see that the probability of a tropical cyclone still remains at 25%, but as it hits Saturday, it becomes to the more northeast of the NT and certainly Darwin, or the Darwin metro area. And at this point in time, by Saturday, the probability of a tropical cyclone developing is actually at 35%, which is the moderate probability of a tropical cyclone developing. And then as we hit Sunday next week, we can see that it actually seems to indicate a slight recurve pattern, positioned basically right over the top end, and certainly including the potential for Darwin to see the development of a tropical cyclone by Saturday or Sunday next week, with the probability on Sunday still at 35%, but I do expect that to change certainly in the next coming forecast updates as we continue to track the system. If we also look at the forecast notes from the BOM Tropical Cyclone Warning Center, we can see that they note an increasing risk of a significant tropical system near the Northern Territory coast next week. Tropical low O2U is located to the south of Timor and is expected to move east steadily during the week towards the Northern Territory coast. There is an increasing risk of tropical low O2U developing into a significant tropical system mid to late week as it moves over the warm Timor Sea waters, supported by favorable environmental conditions. And I think most importantly in this update, we can see here residents about the western and northern top end should monitor forecasts during the week for a potential tropical cyclone near the coast late in the week or the weekend. If we switch to our spaghetti models and take a look at the range of scenarios that the Ensemble solutions are generating, we can see here that it is quite in line with what the Bureau of Meteorology's 7-day tropical cyclone outlook indicated, where the low definitely gradually moves eastward and then positions itself over the northern top end, probably to the northeast of Darwin around the Timor Sea. And then we can see this recurvature pattern where all these low centers begin to move back to almost the southwestern direction, tracking down the coastline, maybe straight through the Darwin area and then back down toward the coast toward WA. But there is a very large large scattering of these different colored tracks, which represents the different intensities that this system could hold. And it's obviously very evident that none of them really follow the direct same path or the same track length, certainly indicating a great deal of uncertainty with this system. We definitely have an indication that they are favoring this easterly track initially before that recurvature, perhaps down the coastline of Darwin before tracking back to the WA region. However, none of them really assume the same path, so there's certainly a great deal of uncertainty exactly at this point in time what will happen with this system. Now, as the forecast continues to evolve over the next couple of days, we will have a better understanding of what the Ensemble potentially can expect for this system, and maybe even as early as in the next 2 to 3 days we might have a better idea of the intensity possible with the system. If we switch to the European model, we can see here that the tropical low is now appearing just to the north of the WA coastline and slightly to the west of the NT. As a relatively weak and transient tropical low, it's around 1008 millibars. But we can see here as we continue to drag this out, by late Sunday, it definitely begins to drop a little bit in pressure, reaching potentially as low as 1005 millibars while tracking eastward. And we can see not a lot continues to happen over the next day or so. But by Tuesday and into early Wednesday, this is when things start to get interesting, because we can see the wind field increases here and the pressure begins to drop, as well as those wind bars become more clockwise around the system. By sort of midday Wednesday, we can see the pressures now around 1000 millibars with that wind field increasing. It's at that point in time, it'll be positioned just to the northwest of Darwin in the Timor Sea region. Now, as we drag this out, we can see that the wind and that clockwise circulation continues to increase by around midday Thursday. And at this point in time, a much greater circulation is evident, and we can see that the wind field rapidly begins to develop by Friday midday. At this point in time, it's still relatively in line with Darwin, just to the north, and still in the Timor Sea, with a rapid pressure drop by Saturday to around 991 millibars. And it still continues to dance around that Darwin region, reaching 988 millibars by around midday Saturday. Definitely a rapid pressure drop, and then it continues to track down near the Darwin coastline. As early as Sunday, by around early morning, we can see that's now 979 millibars, which with a much better defined circulation and an intense wind field, where it continues to track to the southwest, dropping pressure relatively quickly. Certainly by late Sunday, and then into early Monday around 7 days time, we can see it's around 954 millibars before dropping in pressure to a relatively intense, what would be a severe tropical cyclone around a category 3 by this point in time, late Monday next week at 948 millibars, indicating a potential landfall somewhere in northern WA by as early as Monday next week, so around 7 or 8 days time from this forecast period. Now, obviously this is quite far out, and certainly there is a lot of variability in this forecast, and it definitely will change as the atmosphere evolves and the forecast models get a better grasp on this over the next few days. But this is certainly something that we need to continue to track. The European model has actually been pretty consistent in the last few runs over the last 2 to 3 days of depicting a tropical cyclone landfall, probably just between the WA and NT border. So anyone within these regions needs to keep a very close eye on the forecast over the next couple of days, depending on how this system evolves, because there could be substantial impacts for this region within the next 7 to 8 day period. And then if we also look at the radar forecast depiction for this tropical system, we can see here that the European model actually does keep it as a relatively small but certainly compact tropical cyclone, where it begins to wrap up its rain bands and central circulation through that 7 to 8 day forecast period from now, as it begins to track down that Darwin and WA coastline in that southwesterly direction after the initial easterly curve of the tropical low that we spoke about initially. But regardless, even if the European model here is indicating a relatively small tropical cyclone in spatial extent, it certainly doesn't diminish the possibility of a high-end intensity tropical cyclone to deliver significant impacts to this region. So if you do live within this region, or know someone that does, it's certainly worth keeping a very close eye on how this evolves over the next couple of days. We will continue to provide daily updates on this system both here and on the Facebook page, so please continue to monitor these daily, as we will provide the most up-to-date information as the new model runs come in and we continue to get the latest data and information. For now, that's pretty much going to do the video. If you are new here, please remember to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can be up to date with the latest information as it continues to change over the next couple of days for this forecast. We'll continue to monitor the situation and we will be back tomorrow for the next forecast update.